I'd like to follow up on this idea of protagonism of the poor peasants lifting themselves. I mean, we know that the leadership, the Beijing leadership is very strong, but here in the US, we don't hear nearly as much about what's happening at the grassroots, in the villages, among the families. How are they participating in poverty alleviation? Are they making decisions? Can somebody talk on the panel, talk more about what's happening at the grassroots?
So Duncan, you said that how did the peasants join in the poverty alleviation?
Yes, yes. What did they? How did they join? What did they do? Did they make decisions?
Okay, I will give you one example. So, like in my village, we can. So you knew that each house has some land, so they can choose what they will plant this year. Plant rice or plant the herb. So when the policies that we will pay attention to the herb, the Chinese traditional medical herb sales. So there is a program that each one can apply this project. So if my father applied this project, so the local government will evaluate my father's ability and whether he can plant the herb, and then they pass the application. They will say, okay, your land can planted the rice, and then when you finish the planted, you can call the project team. They will drive to your house and they will buy your herb. So that's one. I don't know. Okay. So, and another one is that because the land is belong to what we plant is belong to your choice. So you can change your plant in some content, and if you and the policies encouraged the peasant found new land from the mountain. So you can plant not the rice on the mountain, and they will buy it and buy the production when you harvest on the autumn, and on the other side you can apply to change your land, the rice land, to another so if you want to how to say that? Okay, I will give some examples here.
Okay, those are very good examples. Does anybody on the panel want to comment, or should we move to the next question? Shen Ning?
Yeah, maybe I just add some sentences. And according to my knowledge, at the very the grassroots level, and in the villages we have party branches, and we will have party secretaries, and we will also have what I said, and the first party secretary, which was sent by the government or agencies at a higher level, maybe from the province or maybe from like our international department. And then we will go to the village for help. And then we will listen to the ideas of the villagers. And yeah, and all the villagers can have kind of, they will attend various meetings and to have their own ideas speak out of the development plans for this village. And then maybe the party branch will generate an idea, a plan for this village. And they will also advise the villagers how to, maybe what to plant and how to have a better education, a better living. And then, of course, the villagers have to, who are able to work, they have to work and they have to earn their, earn a living by themselves. And we still depend on themselves to fight for the poverty. They have to do their own part. And we will give them resources and the suggestions, informations, help them to maybe to build the railroads, the roads, and to connect with the outside world. But the infrastructure is provided by the government. The work have to be done by themselves. That is what I want to add. Thank you.
Can I make a quick response to
Yeah,
someone who has once visited China a few years ago? And that is to compare what our panelists have been saying about what is developing in the People's Republic of China. To me, this is an expression of people's democracy. And many of the questions, some of the questions on the Q&A have dealt with the role that anti-communist ideology and propaganda plays in the world, targeting China, among other things, and how we can fight this. One of the ways to fight this is to look at different definitions of democracy, to realize that what China is doing is an expression of people's democracy, socialist democracy. And perhaps the most important point on this whole question is that while China has advanced so much over the last 40 years, the major capitalist countries have fallen back. They have fallen back. There is more, not less, poverty and more destitution poverty, homelessness in our cities. And as the Indian leader Mohandas Gandhi said a century ago, poverty unites with violence, and the two interact with one another. And this is what has become the reality in the major capitalist countries. Learning from China, but more importantly, opposing the Cold War revival policies, which are disastrous for everyone, is what we can and should be doing. I grew up in poverty in New York City, in an area that was famous, the South Bronx, in the 1950s and 1960s. But it was a very different kind of poverty then. We had rent control. So while we lived in a tenement, we could survive. There was a free public university, the City College of New York. I was a good student, I went to it. Utilities, transportation, we could afford it. If I was 30 years younger than I am, if I had been born in the 1970s, not the 1940s, given what my parents were, they would be homeless in the streets of New York. And frankly, I would never have lived to the age that I've reached, because that is what the poverty that imperialism produces today. and has always produced, as one Marxist critic called it, death on the installment plan, life expectancies that are lower and lower. And this is what we can educate people around. And as we seek to develop friendship and solidarity with not only the people, with the People's Republic of China, the great power of socialism in the world today, but also with other countries struggling on a socialist path and all countries struggling against imperialism.
Okay, thank you.
I possibly just jump in with one little comment on that about
sure.
the graphics.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. I think I just want to offer one resource. I mean, not only in the process of doing the study and going down to, we went to Guizhou province, one of the poorer southeastern provinces of the country. But there's also a great resource called the China's War on Poverty. It's a documentary made by US filmmaker Robert Lawrence Kuhn. It was a joint project from PBS and CGTN, the two public broadcasters. And he shows in that one and confirms what we know of these, what are they called, democratic appraisal meetings that happen in the countryside. So it's not just about the officials going in and determining what if a family is listed as poor in the program officially or not, but it's actually a process of kind of a grassroots democratic process, let's say, where villagers actually participate in the discussions of each family's conditions, whether they've been lifted out of poverty, whether they've returned to poverty, and how that matches all up. And in the documentary, it shows a little bit, actually some scenes of those kinds of meetings. And I want to point out that last May, when this was aired, the actual documentary was censored. The PBS actually took it down. And we talked to Robert Kuhn in our study, and he said he's done 4,000 programs for PBS. And this has been the only one that they've ever censored. And there's now people in the US with No Cold Pink and the No China's Not Our Enemy campaign have been trying to get this back on air. So one of the things in terms of fighting the no Cold War narrative is actually getting information even about the poverty struggle, which is clearly deemed so threatening that it has to be censored. I have a link that the CGTN version is online on YouTube that I can also share for anyone who's interested.